Hi, my name is Vanessa,
Hi, my name is Jack.
and today we will be presenting on the company Sysco. The agenda for our presentation starts off with a business overview, including a company description, internal and external analysis, followed by a SWOT analysis, moving on to our risk overview, which will detail a mind map, heat map, and our top 5 risks. Moving next to our key risk analysis, including supply chain disruptions, financial fraud, poor quality control, competitive threats, and regulatory risks. Finally, finishing our presentation with our risk evaluations and risk mitigation techniques. First, we have our company overview. Established in 1969, Sysco is the world's largest global food distributor. Headquartered in Houston, Texas, Sysco has 172 facilities in the United States alone, with some international operational facilities being located in Mexico, Costa Rica, the Bahamas, Ireland, the United Kingdom, France, Sweden, and Panama. Sysco distributes to 90 countries, with the largest sector of their consumers being restaurants, followed by healthcare, educational, and governmental, along with travel and leisure. Sysco produces food and non-food products, including canned and dry products, fresh and frozen produce, papers and disposables, with the highest category of their products sold being fresh and frozen meats. Moving on to our internal view of Sysco, their mission statement being delivering success for our customers through industry-leading people, products, and solutions. Sysco bases their company strategy based off of 5 pillars, including enriching their customers' experience through digital tools, offering marketing and merchandising solutions through customer focus, serving their customers products with efficiency and ease, team-based selling aimed to leverage Sysco's expertise, and new creations with the benefit of company and planet in mind. On the right, we have Sysco's key performance indicators that are used to measure the success of the company, including adjusted operating income growth, adjusted diluted earnings per share, adjusted earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, case volume growth, brand penetration for U.S. operations, and finally, free cash flows. For our external view of Sysco, we have their market space followed by their competitors. Sysco comprises 17% of the U.S. food service distribution industry, with its top competitors including United States Food Holding Corporation and Performance Food Groups and Company. Some characteristics of the food service market landscape include efficient communication between suppliers and buyers, ensuring that consumers know when they are going to receive their products and being able to track its progression, followed by product availability, being able to procure what consumers ask for when they ask for it, and finally, barriers to market entry, specifically in regards to regulatory restrictions and high capital requirements for startup costs. Next, the SWOT analysis of Sysco. We particularly wanted to highlight 2 of the strengths, including Sysco's wide product range, including food and non-food products such as chemicals, cleaning supplies, and equipment, as well as their multitude of suppliers. 2 of the weaknesses of Sysco include their level of indebtedness, which as of July 2022 reached $10.6 billion, could affect the company's ability to obtain any additional financing or exposing them to any adverse economic conditions, along with consumers' ability to easily change companies, which we will go further into depth later in the presentation. Some of the opportunities Sysco has are their local ties to the community, as well as their Global Good Goal program, which donated $46 million worth of products to communities. And finally, finishing off with threats to the company, including U.S. Foods Holding Corporation and any possible changes in their consumers' demographic.
Now we're moving on to risk identification and analysis. Here's a mind map that we created to outline the 4 categories of risk that Sysco faces, including hazard, strategic, financial, and operational. We listed 3 to 4 risks within each category, and then went ahead and starred 2 from each category that we thought were the most important.
Okay. Next, we've created a heat map to depict what we believe are Sysco's top 8 risks, ranked according to likelihood and impact. The top 8 risks we've chosen include competitive threats, regulatory issues, poor quality control, level of indebtedness, labor shortages, supply chain distributions, rising fuel prices, and finally, financial fraud.
The top 5 risks that we identified were disruptions in supply chain, financial fraud, quality control, competitive threats, and regulatory risk. Moving on to our key risk analysis, we'll start with supply chain disruptions. Here are 4 of the drivers that we found, and highlighting 2 of them would be global labor shortages and dock and land transport. 2 sub-drivers of global labor shortages include disposition towards unattractive industries and demographic changes. In 2021, the Bureau of Labor data showed that of the 10.9 million open positions, only 6.7 million hires were reported. And this is not distributed equally between different industries. There's a public perception of less attractive industries being manufacturing and supply chain, which has led those industries' employment to dip by nearly 400,000 from pre-pandemic levels. In terms of demographic changes, during the pandemic, thousands of employees were laid off, and for many, this meant an early retirement. And the next generation to replace them would be millennials and Gen Z, which could be an issue because they have those preconceived notions of the industries being less attractive. In terms of subdrivers for dock and land transport, we included port congestion and chassis and truck availability. Ports are overloaded and gridlocked with shipping containers, which has led them to stack shipping containers higher, making it more difficult and take more time to get to containers on the bottom. And then with labor shortages of truck drivers, fewer raw materials to make truck repairs, and increasing demand for trucks, availability is very low and is becoming more expensive. In 2021, Sysco had to delay or pause service to some of their customers around the country because of these labor shortages. They stated that they were aggressively recruiting delivery partners and warehouse associates, with the goal to restore service to impacted customers as soon as possible. Financial fraud, 3 drivers that we found were opportunity, incentive and motivation, and rationalization. Subdrivers of opportunity are weak internal controls, poor tone at the top, which is the mindset of the upper management and board of directors, how ethical or honest they are, and then inadequate accounting policies. And accounting policies refers to how many items on the financial statement are reported. Then moving on to incentive and motivation. Subdrivers for this would be bonuses based on financial measurements, investor and analyst expectations, and personal incentives. Bonuses based on financial measurements and investor and analyst expectations are both things that could push employees to commit fraud to try and achieve a goal where they feel pressured to do so. And then personal incentives would include bills that they have to pay or addictions such as gambling. Subdrivers for rationalization would include justification of dishonest actions, attitudes within the company or management, and then spite towards management. Justification of dishonest actions is such, or would be like saying there's no other way to do something. Attitudes within the company or management goes back to that tone at the top. If they don't set a good example, then employees could think, well, if they're doing it, then I can too. And then spite towards management would be if an employee feels wronged by management, and they feel like it's only right to get back at them.
Next, we have our key risk analysis of poor quality control. Back in 2014, it was discovered that between July of 2009 and August of 2013, Sysco had stored nearly 406,000 refrigerated foods in unrefrigerated and contaminated containers. These foods sat in the storage containers for several hours before eventually being transported to restaurants and educational consumers. As a result of this, Sysco paid out $19.4 million. One possible driver that we established could have been negligence caused by the failure to follow proper procedures in place, and another possible driver being that standards were not clearly defined, whether that been from lack of proper training or lack of communication between management and the employees responsible for overseeing these tasks. Next, we have our key risk analysis of competitive threats. As previously mentioned, US Foods Holding Corp does pose a threat to Sysco. One possible driver of this is the consumer's ability to change suppliers with ease due to low switching costs and competitors offering a similar range of products at similar price points. The second driver we've highlighted is a shift in consumer preferences. New generations that are coming up, specifically millennials, make up the largest demographic of consumer spending. So if they were to switch their preferences, then this would heavily impact Sysco's product range. A lot of the times millennials are looking towards more innovative meal or ethnic product choices, which could force Sysco to discontinue selling some of their current products and looking for new alternatives.
And then moving on to regulatory risk, two drivers that we found were changing laws and increased costs to run business. Two sub-drivers for changing laws would be political instability, and then the government's government's power to compel business. A sub-driver of increased cost to run business would be changes to achieving compliance, meaning if there are regulatory or law changes, it can be very expensive to change your company to make sure that you're compliant with those. Moving on to our risk evaluation and treatments. Two treatments that we found for supply chain disruptions are diversification of suppliers and product and distributors and purchase of supply chain insurance. Purchasing specialty insurance policies, including contingent business interruption, CBI or CBI insurance, and supply chain insurance. In addition to covering disruptions caused by property damage to your suppliers or downstream customers' businesses, supply chain insurance can cover losses caused by a wide range of events, including natural disasters, industrial accidents, or labor issues, such as strikes or labor shortages. Moving on to our financial fraud treatment plan, we found that two treatments could be the implementation of security and compliance with governmental policies and purchasing business crime insurance. Compliance with U.S. policies such as U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and including implementation of, and as Sysco says, a robust anti-corruption compliance program applicable to our global operations to detect and prevent bribery and to comply with these and other anti-corruption laws in countries where we operate. And then Sysco could also purchase business crime insurance to protect themselves against the possibility of fraud. This insurance is activated when someone commits fraud, embezzlement, forgery, misrepresentation, robbery, theft, or any other type of business-related crime on the company. And we'll list some of the assets and information that Sysco would want to protect in our appendix.
Okay, so one way that we found Sysco could combat the issue of poor quality control is to update their quality assurance practices. As of right now, Sysco does have a quality assurance team of 196 full-time employees, as well as 35 contracted inspectors. However, we would recommend that Sysco start with hiring more individuals to oversee this process, followed by the development and implementation of a quality assurance plan that checks products throughout the distribution process. And by pairing this plan with ongoing training, as well as unscheduled quality checks, this should help reduce the frequency of which poor quality products get distributed. Another treatment plan that we've come up with is umbrella liability insurance, which will just add an extra layer of protection against the already product liability insurance that Sysco holds. Okay, for our competitive threats treatment plan, one way that we found they could mitigate this risk is to develop and sustain a competitive advantage. Sysco could do this by researching and tracking data trends along their consumers to see if they could come up with a way to increase consumer value, which will therefore increase the perceived values consumers are willing to pay for Sysco's products specifically, therefore increasing their overall economic value. Another treatment plan could be to increase shareholder value, which Sysco could do by increasing their return on invested capital, either by growing their revenue streams or minimizing their selling, general, and administrative expenses.
Moving on to our regulatory risk treatment plan. Two treatments that we found could be to implement regulatory risk management systems, and then also to maintain favorable standings with regulators, And then to measure the success or failure of our ERM plan, we would implement the use of key performance indicators that we mentioned before, and here are those again. And then additional concerns or suggestions. We thought it would be important to look at the relative success of the company to the US market. At the 2021's Investor Day, Sysco's executive leaders discussed the company's recipe for growth design and said that it was designed to help the company grow 1.5 times faster than the market by the end of the fiscal year 2024 through 5 strategic pillars that were mentioned earlier. And right now they're outpacing the market by 1.3 times. So they're on track to do so. Then our appendix, here are those examples of assets and information that Sysco protects. And then here are references.